I couldn't even really tell you where one word ended and the next word began. If that happens very often in your classroom, I would really like to know where you go to school, because it never happened in one of my classrooms. These birds, I don't know if they're happy with each other or if they're upset with each other. This is a big buzzard. It's getting chased by a tiny little bird. Maybe the falcon's chasing the buzzard. This can be your classroom when you use this audio learning technique that ULMX loves so much.
Dieses Video wurde stolz präsentiert von der ULMX-App, verfügbar im App Store für iOS-Geräte. Android-Benutzer und diejenigen, die das Spiel ausprobieren möchten, können den kostenlosen Podcast auf iTunes und Spotify herunterladen. Bitte beim Podcast nicht vergessen, den Pausenknopf zu drücken. Die App pausiert übrigens automatisch für dich, damit du gleichzeitig anderswo produktiv sein kannst.
It's fun and effective, and the three main tenets, the three huge foundational values that ULMX stands on are: we're building confidence objectively because you're getting better, so you're going to have this objective growth in your competence, but it's a subjective feeling too. So you have an emotional amount of confidence that's really, it's got nothing to do with how good you are. It's got to do more with how good you think you are. And you're free. You're free to be anywhere, walking, moving, not sitting at a desk, not confined to a building. And those three things, that's the win-win-win. It's really, really good. When I first started practicing, what I did was... Oh, excuse me, if I may, I would like to just mention, Matt, is it just me? Or is what you're saying here basically that you've got a revolution for the education industry? I mean, I might be overstating things, but ladies and gentlemen, I don't know, what do you think? Effective and more enjoyable. It's a combination set for the Hall of Fame, if you ask me. Oh, and while I have your attention, I know that you like going outside, but the wind noise is pretty loud. So maybe you could make some videos in like a nice quiet room like this. Or, you know, they have special technology to filter out all that wind noise, which you could use in the future. Ball's in your court. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead. Back to what you were saying. I was loving it. I'm tuning in. I'm listening. Go ahead, please. Thank you. Thank you for your time. What I did was I put my headphones in. My wife and I made a game for myself. So it was custom, just like all the ULMX games are for anyone who buys ULMX. And I would just ride up and down the same hill. So I would get in a lot of fitness training at the same time, practicing simple sentences like, what would you like to do today? When you first start in a language, stringing together a sentence is pretty hard, but it's so much more useful than memorizing individual words. Of course, there comes a time for that too, but most people avoid that super hard first step where you're not used to the language and you don't want to speak it. You might be more comfortable just listening to it, or maybe just reading it or writing it or copying lists. But the reason you feel more comfortable doing that is because it is easier, and it's therefore not going to help you grow as much. What helps you grow is going into the unknown, where the beauty of copying auditory stimuli, if you will, and this is what you do when you learn a language for the first time. You don't learn to read and write before you learn to speak. You first just copy stuff. And as long as you're not afraid of making mistakes, anyone will be able to do that. And you grow so much faster because you're internalizing all that. Every single syllable is internalized. And what I would do is I just copy the sentence before I even knew what it was, what it said, like how to spell it. I didn't even know which words were in there. I didn't know. I couldn't even really tell you where one word ended and the next word began. And like the difference between Entschuldigung and Entschuldigen Sie, I didn't really know. I didn't know what that was. I didn't know one was a noun, one was a verb. It didn't matter to me. Like excuse me or pardon, you know? Doesn't matter. Both are essentially like just the syllables. So with excuse me, you get 2, 3. With pardon, you have 2. If you use me in both cases, it doesn't matter if you're learning the language, if you really know me. What does me mean? Just say it. Just say pardon me. It doesn't matter if you can't speak any other word in the language. People are gonna like you because you're gonna be really polite. It doesn't matter if you understand really. I remember at some point in high school, I learned how to spell something or what something really was for the first time that I thought I really already knew it. So for all intents and purposes, that's intents and purposes. And as a 15, 16-year-old, I didn't actually know that's how you spelled that. I never read it in my life. I heard people say it, but I never wrote it. I never read it. I never saw it on subtitles or anything like that. So I thought it was for all intensive purposes. That's what I understood. And if I had ever needed to write it, I would have written it wrong. And it just struck me at that moment how little you really might know. Like, as far as spelling goes, and as far as turn of phrase goes that you haven't read, you could just be copying something wrong. And it happens very rarely in your native language. You usually just have a good grip on it. But, I mean, I've heard, for example, some people think an end effect in German is like spelled im Ende effect. And it's like, I don't know, it's pretty funny. You could always do little things like that wrong, but those things don't matter in day-to-day life. It's your pronunciation that matters. So that's where you get to practice speaking like a first language learner speaks, where you get to just copy, and maybe you don't know exactly what they're saying. You can check the transcript on ULMX. We don't encourage you to really use it unless you feel like you have a question. Don't rely on it. It's just there as a resource if you ever have to ask yourself, like, what exactly am I saying actually here? And then usually, I mean, it's like when you first meet someone and you hear their name, sometimes you don't know exactly what they said until you get the image of the word and the spelling, and now you understand what their name is, how to say it, or at least how to say it in your accent. I think that's a good example of that. Like, if you need guidance, that's what the spelling is there for. But ultimately, you see how little the spelling sometimes means. I just made a video on the 4 or 5 different sounds that the vowel letter A can represent. So you never really know. That's all I really want to say in this video. Thanks for checking in again. It's ULMX, Universal Language Media Exchange. See you next time. Or you'll see me next time. I get used to saying it that way because I don't really see anybody.